Well, those of you who weren't here in the very beginning, in Ottumwa, the idea...
We all were.
There was about a handful of you that were. The idea and the journey that it took to get here, all the challenges that everybody went through, the blood, sweat, and tears that brought it to the point it is. There's a short story here, news clips, that's going to describe all that. So again, you know exactly what it is that brought us here. It was actually a long journey that at times we didn't think we would ever make it. And we didn't always know where to go or what we were doing. We were sort of running fast and figuring we would find our way. And of course, nobody worked harder at that than Walter. The fact of the matter is he worked harder, he suffered, he has more blood, sweat, and tears than anybody. So he's going to actually narrate what it is that happened. But remember, although there's a tremendous level of satisfaction, almost every day he woke up, there was a challenge. Gee, could he actually make it to the end of the day? It was that difficult at times. So when he's here and you see him, he's all happy and he's full of smiles. I mean, he did. He worked hard. He earned it. And you know me, I don't give him very much credit. So I will give him that credit. And the fact of the matter is, this is a story about Twin Galaxies, sure. It's a story about Ottumwa for sure. But it's really a story about Walter Day, Twin Galaxies, and Ottumwa. So, Walter Day.
Maybe this is the 1000th time I've stood in front of a big audience and said, boy, am I tired. I'll be glad when this weekend is over. Because there's so much stuff we've done and it's only beginning because we have a great day tomorrow. But however, there's a reason why. Michelle, where are you? Michelle, stand up. She put together tons of this. Let's hear it from Michelle. Michelle is from Bloomingdale, New Jersey. Todd is back there manning all the technology. He's from Gurnee, Illinois. He's making all this stuff happen. Tremendous amount of stuff. Triforce is from Jamaica. He came so that he could be part of this and lends his incredible credentials as an e-sport expert to bring even further credibility to all the things we're doing here. The reason I brought these three people up, and I could be bringing a lot of people up, is because there's people all over North America and other places who are here. And here's why people come here. Here's why Ottumwa is the video game capital of the world. So a long time ago, in a state called Iowa, there's a town. Ottumwa's a pretty nice town, you know, not too big, not too small. And a couple of guys opened up an arcade, and they called it Twin Galaxies. There's a nice arcade. It wasn't too big, it wasn't too small. And it was really a normal arcade, like 50,000 other arcades around North America. They would expect to have the same, you know, lifespan. You know, they served the community for a while, like Twin Galaxies did, very honorably, and then they're gone. Just come and go, you know? But something happened that was unusual. For some reason, within a few months of it being open, it became the official scorekeeper for the entire world of video game playing. And it became responsible for keeping track of the records, making a statistical database, and creating the rules that people would have to play so that people could compare scores and could compete against each other no matter where they were. And also publish those records, create world titles like the Nibbler champion, the Pac-Man champion, and then crown those champions, and then create a whole program of contests. This little arcade in Ottumwa started doing that. Unbelievable. And people came. They came from all over North America. And then they even came from all over the world. And then they even came from other planets. But as time went on, the place became the most famous arcade in the world. It became the crossroads for the whole world of video game playing. It's where competitive players, meaning the original esports people, would come here because this was the place you go if you were a serious competitor in video game playing, long before they ever called it esports. Lots of contests, lots of fame. And the fame The fame caused the media to flock to it. And the magazines began to carry the scoreboard. So the magazines made the scoreboard available to everyone because the internet didn't exist then. So the magazines made the scoreboard available. So everybody would know what score they had to beat to be the champion on that game title. And then Life magazine decided that, wow, this is such a big phenomenon, we have to do a major story on the video game phenomena. And they thought, quite rightly, the most important part of it was the people themselves. Not the game, not the technology, not the amount of dollars being made, but the people. And they said to the video game industry, what can you tell us? What story should they do? And believe it or not, they all said, Ottumwa. You have to go to Ottumwa. And so that Life magazine happened, which is now clearly recognizable as the most famous photograph in the entire history of the video game industry. Most recognizable, you know. And the mayor of Ottumwa, Jerry Parker, being inspired by this amazing stuff, decided he would declare Ottumwa the video game capital of the world. And that story went everywhere. Ottumwa was the video game capital of the world, the crossroads of video game playing. If you were a person who played games, you would come to Ottumwa. That was the place to go. That was the place to be seen. That's Incredible, the famous ABC TV show, which was a big phenomenon back then, decided they were going to do a feature too. So they did a major historical event, the That's Incredible Video Game Olympics, which was co-created by us at Twin Galaxies, and That's Incredible. And that's a historical phenomenon that's a tremendous feather in the cap of not only Twin Galaxies, but all of esports history in general. And then the governor of Iowa, Terry Branstad, who's the governor now again, he came here along with the president of Atari and the director of the AGMA, which is the Amusement Game Manufacturers Association. They all together, with Mayor Jerry Parker there, proclaimed Ottumwa the video game capital of the world. So we had tremendous confirmation on very, very high levels of government and the media and the general population. So, and with this fame and this growing importance, and also this growing responsibility, Twin Galaxies created the U.S. National Video Game Team, which essentially is history's first esports team. And it went on the road many places, and people in this room were on that team, founding members. And we traveled around and faced off against other people in other arcades in an era when there was no internet, and this is how you did it. You got there behind the wheel in your car, and you went places and you played people face to face. It was a tough time, fascinating time, a fun time, way before the internet. And created a video game record book eventually, had all sorts of trials for the U.S. National Video Game Team tryouts, and then I forget what the slide's supposed to be, and then, we go back, I'm just kidding. Actually, then, eventually, Guinness World Records decided that they liked the organization and infrastructure of Twin Galaxies so much and trusted us as being the reliable, authoritative source that they began for the first time in their history to carry video game scores. And even today, now 31 years later, they now have been carrying Twin Galaxy scores and published the Guinness World Record Gamers Edition. So it came as an inspiration from Twin Galaxies, but the Twin Galaxies arcade closed on March 6, 1984, but the scoreboard went on. It went on and traveled. It was other places for years and years and years, and now it's owned by Jace Hall in Los Angeles and Hollywood, California, who's developing it more and more and more, using a lot of advanced technology and his connections to show business and industry. So that still goes on. But even though Twin Galaxies had been gone from Ottumwa for a long time, the state idea still simmered, still sparkled back in Ottumwa. As early as September of '82, the idea for the Video Game Hall of Fame existed in Ottumwa. And then in 1983, like this here, October 8th, 1983, a pretty comprehensive article about the Video Game Hall of Fame plan in Ottumwa, Iowa. That idea was leaped upon by many people with a big initial or thing called the Big Bang in 2009, and then an induction of the class of 2010 here in the Bridgeview Center, which brings us up to why we are here today to induct the class of 2015. We have ballots here we'll pass out before the night's over for nominating or helping us nominate class of 2016. That's why we're here. I tried to make it as simple and as clear as possible. It was a long process. It took an amazing amount of life support the whole way through. It was bigger than one individual person's genius. Nobody could have thought how to make this happen. It just was the need of the times, like the forces of nature, just leaping up and making Ottumwa the video game capital of the world. So as I said earlier today, if there's anybody out there, either in this room or anywhere in the world, who doesn't realize that Ottumwa's the video game capital of the world and the historic birthplace of organized competitive esports, well, just get over it. Because this is the credit. We're all here for a reason. We're all here for a reason. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, the class of 2015.
It's kind of funny, as we announce each person in the class of 2015, they're often presented by somebody who has tremendous stature also, but they're presented because they have such respect for the person that they're calling up on stage. So you can remember that as we speak about each person. It's our way of giving respect back to them. And the person I need to come up here now and stop looking at the other guy's phone is Mr. Triforce Johnson, who's going to induct our first inductee. I specifically said, Walter, you need to stay up here, and he said, okay.
Okay, thank you guys for having me back in Ottumwa, Iowa. It's a blessing to and an honor to always come to the video game capital of the world. I 100,000 million trillion % back up everything Walter Day just said in the introduction. And the first person I would like to thank and commemorate for getting into the Hall of Fame is a fan favorite of mine, so I'm an actual fan, and his name is Thord Ackerlund. He's the winner of the original Nintendo World Championships back in 1990. One of esports' earlier giant tournaments. I don't know if anyone remembers, but it was at the Epcot Center in Florida. He holds 2 world records for Tetris on the NES, and he plays a starring role in the documentary called Ecstasy of Order: The Tetris Masters. Unfortunately, Thor was not able to make it, so I decided to make a speech on his behalf. He kind of wrote something, wanted me to actually, present it to you guys. And he wanted to thank you, Walter, for making this happen for him, and for their work over the years to bring people together and to be the authors and creators of a wonderful architecture and achievement in the world of gaming. He's deeply honored to be mentioned amongst the names today. Chris McCandless went on to deeply personally journey, and of his apparent conclusions was happiness is only real when it's shared. I think I know what he meant by that, how connections to others, travelers, and people matter, and shared experiences grow deeper with understanding. In 1990, he was a child who had already experienced much of the worst in life, and he didn't quite understand the world around him yet. But he found a flyer for the Nintendo World Championships, and it said something like, "Someone has to win, why not you?" His little family wasn't in the best shape at the time, and thought winning that would, winning that event could help him and his family get a grasp and get back on their feet. as a way of showing you the hard answer and things you haven't grasped yet and can't prepare for until you've already been struck by them. For many years, he looked back on those early days and felt like it was all for nothing. Depression was a constant companion. For a few years, Robin Mahara, I don't know if I pronounced his name properly, looked up at him and started a conversation about the game of Tetris and in the Nintendo World 1990 in general. Over the decades, it crystallized into a legend, a truly coast-to-coast, nearly year-long epic story. And what he realized was that the games themselves weren't very important to him after all. It was the people, much like what Walter mentioned. The friends and the shared experience, the mutual struggles against ourselves, and the path of games themselves that forged those bonds. A quarter century didn't fade that, it brought it into a deeper light. And this is a lesson that he will never forget. It's why we're here, because all we want to do is share those stories together. And games are always at their best when they bring people together. In closing, he would like to thank you all for the kindness that you've shared with him. Now young boys are now young boys of his own, and he's getting to experience the world with new eyes, and he's grateful for the work that his fellow generation, and he's optimistic for the future of the next generation to come. Maybe he'll see some of you guys down the road. And until then, may all of your blocks hit the right spaces. Thank you.
Of all of us that play games, Triforce was more qualified to speak about him than anybody, because for sure, he's the one that walks between both worlds of an arcade world and a console PC world. So I should have given you that credit before you go. I don't like to give you too much credit. So, all right, this next one is easy. I like him for a couple of additional reasons that I'll share at the end. But the fact of the matter is that Tim Balderramos first came on to the video game scene in 1983. He had the first major Pac-Man score that was recorded that held a position in the Twin Galaxies database. And he was only 15 years old. And we sat there and we sort of stared at it for a long time, never really having done anything about it for some time. His love, his affinity for video games is certainly what helped him choose the major that he took, which was, computer science. The major that he did at the University of South Dakota. And we always talk about typical video game players, and you can think of the stereotype that people have in mind, which is not always flattering. Well, he graduated from the University of South Dakota, and I even have a hard time saying it, Kundam Lada, and hot stuff. From there, he went on to get his master's degree at the University of Minnesota in 1998, and he now works as an IT consultant. In his illustrious career, he's always been in the top 4 or 5 players the whole time, top 4 or 5 players in Pac-Man. He was the 4th player, and it was to my shock when I read it. He was the 4th player who suddenly got a perfect score on Pac-Man. And he did it on the arcade version, and he was the only person that's done it on the PC-based arcade. And so that was impressive. And his scores, his names, his accomplishments not only are noted in the Twin Galaxies Video Game and Pinball Book of World Records, but it's also noted in the Guinness Book of World Records Game of the Year edition as well. So he certainly deserves all that he's had. The one thing that I wanted to talk about was he's a guy who would achieve something, and basically he would, whether he spoke of it or not, he would step back and go back to a normal life. And of course, most of us don't do a whole lot that's normal, but he would go back to a normal life. Basically, he would retire. He didn't announce it, but he just sort of went back to his own life. But he came back and he played in the Xbox Challenge in New York City in 2006. To give you an idea how many people played, there were over 6 million people that competed. Wow. And there were 12 of us that went to New York. And of us Americans who were there, he was the last one standing. To be honest, we were having fun and we were really cocky. And somehow a guy from Australia and a guy from Mexico, or excuse me, Austria and a guy from Mexico went in front of us. And we kind of shook our heads, we had no idea why, but he was the last one who was actually standing. And so that was a lot of fun. He announced his retirement formally in June of 2008, and I thought, sure. So, but the fact of the matter is, since then, coming here, doing other things briefly, he went to a kill screen challenge in 2015 in California. But what I see happen with him, which happens with all of us, we like our achievements, we like having our fun, but there's something about the friendships we create that we truly never want to give up. That's why he keeps continuing to play, even if it's not on the highest competitive level. He does it at a level so that he can continue to come back to events like this and continue the friendships that he's created along the way. So I seem to think that he's always going to come to these events or these gatherings amongst his friends, probably until he's old and gray. And the fact is, he now lives in the Twin Cities. He lives with his wife, Candace. He lives with his son, Jared, his daughter, Dia, and his niece, Cheyenne. He still has time to play a game here and there for fun, along with hockey, along with wrestling, along with running. Yes, he still does play Pac-Man. He doesn't play it as we would play it together, but he plays with the enjoyment of his family. I guess that's a tribute to the fact that he's truly a family man. And he's a terrifically nice guy, because one thing we do in the gaming world, and I can point at different people that would attest to this, is when we're playing and we're getting scores, we don't talk nice about each other. We do in the right circles, but I'll say to somebody, I said to John Studley, who recently got a score in the United Kingdom, I said, where'd you learn that move? He goes, oh, he said, well, I learned it because Tim Balderrama said that you and he played when you were at the Mall of the Americas. And I go, he said that? Yeah. He's not supposed to talk nice about me. I don't talk nice about him. But anyway, he's just truly a good guy and a good family guy. And when I saw his name come on the ballot, I was truly happy, and I wanted to make sure that I was the one that spoke about him. And I'd like Tim to come up here now, if he could, please. Tim Balderrama. Now you got to do is give the performance of a lifetime now.
Smile. He didn't take it for you, he did sell it.
Yeah, it's a flip phone. I'm old school. To paraphrase a line from one of my daughter's old bedtime stories. Wow. That's all I can say. Wow. When I first stepped up to a Pac-Man machine, I wasn't quite sure what to expect. It was an exciting, nerve-wracking, frustrating moment all rolled into one. And it was at that moment I caught what was so famously described in song, Pac-Man fever. The years and the decades that followed saw me in an on-again, off-again relationship with video games and Pac-Man in particular. From chasing early 80s fame by claiming the high score, to chasing perfection years later, to being pulled out of semi-retirement, even full retirement, competing from one end of the country to the other. It has been one fantastic ride. I recall being here, seeing the inaugural class being inducted in 2010. And while I would say that I would never consider myself on the same plane of existence as those great players and pioneers, I admit, I caught myself wondering what it would be like to be up here being honored myself. Now that I'm here, and it's real, I've convinced myself it's not a dream, and yes, I do have the pinch and bruises to prove it. I stand in awe and incredibly humbled to be among such incredible names. While it was mostly me versus the Pac-Man machine during most of my playing career, I was never truly alone. My parents, who had often lamented about what a distraction the game had been in my youth, became proud of the direction that Pac-Man and my resultant love of computers eventually took me on a professional level. I'd like to think that my mom still enjoys me weaving an occasional Pac-Man related tale, and I'd like to think that my father is looking down on us right now with a wink and a smile. Mom and Dad, I love you, and I thank you for being there through thick and thin. Amazing thing is, some of my more memorable moments in Pac-Man have actually come in recent years. I mean, seriously, I've been so much busier since I retired. From playing in New York to California, against some of the best players in the world, alongside some living legends of the classic gaming scene, all while doing my best Brett Favre impression of retiring and unretiring. I want to thank the International Video Game Hall of Fame, ICON, and everyone involved for the privilege to stand before you tonight. I want to thank the players, past and present, both still with us, and those who have moved on. Thank you for driving me and inspiring me. And I want to name every single name, but I'm so nervous right now, and I'm so afraid I'm going to miss somebody. You know who you are, and I hope I've paid it forward in some way. But most of all, I need to thank my entire family, including my sister Bobby, who made the trip. But most of all, and I had warned them that I was going to hijack the ceremony until they come up here on stage and join me. But then, they warned me that they would get up and walk out if I tried that. I won't force their hand, but I need to especially thank my wonderful wife, Candace, and amazing children, Jared and Dia, who are all, by the way, great gamers in their own way. Thank you for supporting me, putting up with me, and most of all, for believing me. Especially during those times when I didn't believe in myself. As far as I'm concerned, my success as a gamer was a team effort. From Candace being so wonderful and supportive, to Jared, my coach, during many of my high school runs, to Dia, who, despite her youth, has taught me many things in gaming. From how to turn the family room into a maze so we could play Pac-Man in real life, to more recent tutorials on Undertale. I don't get a perfect game without you guys. I don't get to go to New York without you guys. I don't do what I did in California without you guys. You guys are the ones who should be up here, not me. Guys, again, I thank you, and I love you. I love you so much. And to everyone else, God bless and thank you. Thank you so much for this incredible moment that I will never, ever forget. Thank you.
Could I have the remarkable David Bishop please come up? Pac-Man. And he's now going to induct Defender into the International Video Game Hall of Fame. But I just wanted to make one little preface that's very interesting. One little preamble to your induction ceremony. When the Twin Galaxies scoreboard first started in February of 1982, we found ourselves in the middle of a maelstrom of video game competition, arcades all over the place. People were competing with a world record on Defender. Defender was the only game in the history of all the stuff Twin Galaxy did that could go nose to nose with Pac-Man. It's kind of funny, your company Namco did Pac-Man, and now you're conducting Defender. Defender's the only one who could attempt to try for that time. Pac-Man, of course, would transcend to an unusual level of glory. But back in those arcades at that time, Defender was the only one that could keep up with Pac-Man and give it a run for its money. So let's invite David to induct Defender into the International.
Everybody knows Defender. I'll keep it short and sweet. Defender came out in 1981, and this is like the second time I've been up here accepting an award for a video game. So I'm really honored for that. In 2010, I was up here accepting for Pac-Man, which obviously is very close to my heart, and I've grown up with it. Defender, though, is also very personal to me. It was in 1981, I was working in an arcade, and I'm here today because, like you guys, we all love what we do. Defender was probably the game that got me to stay in the industry, and that's how I began my career. It's a great game. At the time, it was the hardest game that came out, and we all played Defender because you had this badge of honor if you were the guy that had some proficiency in Defender. And so it was a fabulous game. We all put a ton of time into it. I'll even admit that I played it so much I put blisters on my hand, and I bought a glove to wear when I was playing Defender so I would not get the blisters. It was a terrific game, and it really deserves, I always felt like Defender, as much as Pac-Man, deserves a place in everyone's memory and in the history books. So, class of 2015 welcomes Defender. You know what? I'm sorry. So the guy that was really responsible, I thought he was going to be here tonight. I'm really disappointed he wasn't. Eugene Jarvis. Those of you know Eugene was actually the head of the development team on Defender. It was actually Eugene's first video game. It was Wayne's first video game. Released in 1981. They did 55,000 units of Defender 2, which made it one of the really successful video games out there. But we'll take this back to Eugene and give it to him because it was his game. It's really his vision to put the game out there. Yeah.
One little additional comment is that when the scoreboard first started, we started monitoring marathons. Remember, you could put a quarter in a game in Defender and run it for hours and hours and hours. When I first met Eugene for the first time, he said, "You're responsible for me having to stay up all night, for night after night, as the year went on, because we had to monitor marathons in Defender." Such an amazing game. Such an amazing game. We're honored to have Eugene's brainchild here in the Hall of Fame. Now, one of the first great gamers also to get some of the earliest big headlines was a gamer named Eric Chin. And we are very honored to have to join us on the stage now, Kevin Bacchus, who is a member of the class of 2010. Kevin was one of the 4 engineers who first envisioned the Xbox and brought it to life. He was an engineer with Microsoft, and I guess they just convinced Microsoft they should create this vision they had, and he was one of the 4-man team. Kevin, thank you for coming.
I have to say, convincing Microsoft to build a game console is nothing compared to the complexity of actually getting to Iowa. In a time when the world is really starting to wake up and take notice of esports, I think it's absolutely appropriate that this year we are recognizing probably the first true esports celebrity. Eric for those of you who aren't aware, won a Centipede contest in 1981, exactly 35 years ago, and became quite possibly the first competitive gaming media darling. As I recall, I believe the prize for that was a car, which never quite materialized, so Atari themselves actually ended up covering the value of the prize to make it a special thing for Eric. Well, they must have done a really good job, because for the next 10 years, Eric actually turned his passion for gaming into a career developing games for Atari, including a number of titles for the original Lynx system. And I think that's really terrific that he was able to sort of give back to the many, many gamers who enjoyed the projects that he worked on together. He continued working at small companies making home computer and console games with people like Franz Lanzinger and Mark Robicek. He was one of the original members of the Life magazine photo, along with Billy and many of you here in the audience today. He wrote for Joystick Magazine. He has continued to work on his passion. In fact, this year he released a number of iOS-based mobile games, which I encourage you all to kind of track down and download and provide some support to him as well. So again, one of the first true competitive gaming celebrities, one of the first true esports celebrities, Eric Jenner, class of 2015. Unfortunately, Eric wasn't able to join us here today. Evidently more complex to get to Des Moines from where he is than it was, I think, for many of us. But I'm sure that he would be thrilled to be able to thank each of you individually and collectively, and so I do that on his behalf today.
Well, every event we do, there's always somebody who extends themselves above and beyond. Without that person that extends himself above and beyond, we wouldn't be able to do it. Certainly, if we did do it, it would not come off as well as it does. And the fact of the matter is, one of those somebodies is here. And when I call her up, you've heard us talk about her this weekend. You've heard us say all kinds of wonderful things. And the truth of the matter is, we underscore exactly all that she does, because she prepares for months in order to put this event together. It's kind of fitting that she's coming up here to talk about a woman. So, girl power, woman to woman. As a matter of fact, I won't even say who she's here to talk about. I'll just have her come up here. Michelle Ireland.
First, just let me say, it's my job to be quick, so that's what I'm going to do. I have the pleasure of inducting Kat Gunn. She is the first woman to make it into the International Video Game Hall of Fame. So I think that's huge, because she's the first of many. She's a professional gamer and cosplayer. She's best known for winning the second season of WCG's Ultimate Gamer on the Sci-Fi Channel. She's been named the highest earning female gamer in the upcoming Guinness Book of World Records Gamers Edition. Did you hear that, Walter? That's mine next. She currently streams on Twitch TV and is a member of the professional gaming team Dignitas. So on behalf of the International Video Game Hall of Fame, I'm going to also accept this award for Kat Gunn, who is the very first woman to make it into the International Video Game Hall of Fame. Girl power.
If there's one guy in the audience here, as I say, who goes above and beyond, who's an absolute whipping post, when we're having fun and picking on people. I mean, he does a lot of work. So little gratitude. I'm not saying he deserves the gratitude, but he does do a lot of work. He's a good guy, and I first met him here in 1982. He was in that original Life magazine photo. The next time I saw him was at a reunion photo in 2005, here in 2009, and then here in 2010. And it seems ever since then, I see him, I talk to him almost daily. And again, the friendships that have been formed that came out of video games that I talk about is something that's kind of cherished. And it's kind of fitting that he's coming up here to talk about another gamer who dates way back, a great gamer who went on to tremendous things in the industry as well, Steve Harris. So he'll be able to talk about him, and he'll be able to talk about him well. And Steve deserves the words that Joel's going to give to him. And again, I can't think of anybody better than Joel to talk about Steve Harris. So please welcome Joel West.
Ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight for Steve Harris, but I am not Steve Harris. And I appreciate the kind words Mr. Mitchell said, but I have never met Mr. Harris. I don't know what he looks like. I don't even know what he sounds like. So instead of giving you a dry, bored speech that from someone who isn't here, we had Steve to send us in a speech. And I'm going to give you the speech as
I got paid $100 to bring this out.
I've never met Steve, so I don't know what he sounds like. So we're going to have a little fun tonight. Steve would, from what I have understood, appreciate the character that we're going to do now for the speech. So here we go. Wait, excuse me, before I start.
That was not marijuana.
Hello, everyone. My name is Stephen Harris. I want to thank everyone who is responsible for choosing me to be a part of the Video Game Hall of Fame. It is a great honor to be associated with such a talented group of members whose contributions have added so much to the world of competitive gaming. The larger video game community is such a great part of my past. I'm sorry I wasn't able to make it back to Ottumwa for the ceremonies and reconnect with my friends in the classic days of Twin Galaxies. So many parts of my adult life began in southeast Iowa, where I found a family, and I found a wife I married from nearby Fairfield. A Twin Galaxies family that I was privileged to get to know includes many of the names you know, like Bill Mitchell. As many others you probably have never heard of. What else said? Big balloons for the kids after this. We shared playing tips and traded high scores, competed against each other and challenged one another, traveled the world doing what we loved, and even dared to dream crazy dreams of future where, man, it's a long since. We're playing video games professionally in stadiums with thousands of people, broadcasting millions, could become a reality. Of course, we know that would never happen. Now, I was a part of the amazing journey at its genesis, and the memories that I have from those days will always be cherished. I'm receiving this award today because of this video game family. That's why I have come to dedicate this award to Walter Day. My friend, who was the father of competitive esports and video gaming, and a father figure to all of us who knew him. He always tried to encourage us selflessly, opening doors to opportunities that wouldn't have existed otherwise. Walter Day is a man that has convinced us all that no matter what our situations is, one day the recognition that we need and we deserve will come. Thank you, Walter. Thank you, Twin Galaxies. Thank you to everyone involved in giving me this award. It is truly an honor, and thank you very much.
I don't.
Maybe we should skip this next person. Mark Hoff, the one who carried the gas up here. Yeah. He's the next one to step up here and talk about Eugene Jarvis and Gary Stern. Two absolute pioneers in the industry. And I guess Mark's got a serious face on, so I guess things will work out good.
How do you follow Joel doing that?
But let me say something good about Mark. Again, everywhere we go, there's always people. That's right. There's always people who toe the line. There's always a local guy who, without that local guy, we wouldn't get stuff done. So it's been good for us, the fact that he remained here in Ottumwa, nearby, and he's always the go-to guy whenever there's any problem. So he's one of the go-to guys when there's mischief too, but that's all right.
Walter asked us to set a marathon for the longest speech, so I brought notes. Matt's going to join me so we can get through this, and you guys can probably Google these people and find out more quicker on your phone than I could say, because they are prolific innovators, both Eugene Jarvis and Gary Stern. So, in brief, if you've never heard of Eugene Jarvis, he's a guy that was Southern California boy from the 70s, you know. Went to Berkeley, was one of the first people doing the computer programming, went on to Atari, worked on pinballs with Steve Ritchie, which is another guy to Google. They set pinball machines on fire in the lab. He ended up in Chicago in the coin-op industry, and went on to do great things like Defender and Robotron. I think even worked on Mortal Kombat projects. And then you've got Gary Stern, who has a father who goes clear back to the 30s and 40s in the pinball industry. You know, these are well-rooted people in the psychology of gaming. So he has a law degree, but he uses it to expand his love of gaming by starting a pinball company. You know, he worked with David East and Stern, and that's Von Stelberg, so it's become its own culture. So as you listen to a lot of Hall of Fame speeches, you hear about the things that happened, you know, and what made them great, but we want to talk about those specific details, because those things are in all of us about how to really be great in your own life. So we'll keep this short and sweet, and Matt's going to help me, and I'll kind of reference how Eugene and Gary have lived in a way that leads to this moment where it's obvious that they were going to be in the Hall of Fame.
Grit has been willing to do whatever it takes. Grit keeps us in the game when we want to quit. Grit helps us push through barriers.
And Eugene Jarvis epitomizes that, because when the industry died, and it died hard, he went back to college to get more business skills, and then he came right back into the industry and worked in pinball, more video games, and he eventually went on to found Raw Thrills. And if you've not heard of Raw Thrills, you've probably seen their games in Chuck E. Cheese, Dave & Buster's, the entrance to Walmart's, everywhere. They even have a Walking Dead game coming out. So Gary's done the same thing. When the industry died with pinball, he stuck with it. I mean, he's a successful attorney. He could have done a lot of other things, but he stuck with his passion. And when he started Stern, people still weren't sure. And now you can see Stern pinballs everywhere. You see it on TV, on commercials. So it's become a global culture, and he's everything to do with that. So with this grip theme, we'll go through just G-R-I-N-T, so you can count off how quickly.
Starting with the G, goals. A great vision without any goals leads nowhere. We need to be responsible for the stewardship of ourselves.
And that's real simple. They were pioneers, and they innovated. They didn't wait for a boss to tell them what to do. They figured out what to do, and they made their own atmosphere around them.
Remarkable. Refusing to accept the status quo. Nobody is attracted to mediocrity. You have to have fire before you can truly burn.
Yeah, they didn't go to work and just make something to get it done. Like when I walked up here and hit Defender, the sounds, that's all Eugene Jarvis. He's a musician, and he figured out how to electronify. Probably made that word up, but they did all these powerful things. If you've ever played one of these new Stern pinball machines, it is an overload of all of your senses. Your eyes, your ears, it's the whole thing, even in your fingers. Powerful people.
Identify what you have. Why would you need any more if you aren't a good steward of what you already have?
Yeah, and that's where Jarvis took his introverted programming and started making things, found people, and he built himself, these groups of being in brilliant teams. And Stern, he kept all the geniuses employed. When the pinball industry died, a lot of artists and brilliant people were out of work. So it took somebody like Gary to use his skills to keep everybody employed. And that was not for money, that was for love. Passion.
Teamwork makes the dream work, baby. The person who must always be recognized holds back the team from success.
Yeah, and that's it. These are people that we can stand up here and talk about individually, but if they were up here, they would be talking about all of the support people around them. Jarvis he'd be telling you wildly inappropriate stories, but they would be very passionate stories, working with the Larry Mars, who, are geniuses out of MIT, surrounding themselves with these people and relying on them. In talking to Eugene in the past and Larry, they said, well, if you have an idea, a creative idea, it doesn't mean anything if you don't create it and bring it to the team. So there was always an expectation of that. And Stern's the same way. Gary will be the first one to always talk about the people that he surrounds himself. There are like Barry Alslers who've done games you've seen like Pinball, and Steve Ritchie, all these wonderful people, and they make up the universe that Gary Stern lives in. So Eugene will actually be with Billy and Walter at the end of the month, and he will receive his award. But Lonnie, will say a few words on Gary's behalf. Thank you.
I'm sure Mr. Stern would like to thank the Hall of Fame for the award. To give you a little story, I've collected pinballs for several years. The first pinball machine I had was a Stern pinball. The last pinball machine I bought was a 2016 Metallica. The Stern Group, under Gary's leadership, has really brought joy to millions of people. His innovations have placed his games at the forefront of almost every competition for the IFPA. So on behalf of Gary, I accept that. Rumor has it that it's going to sit on top of my Metallica. Metallica actually comes and signs it. Is that true?
Okay, once again, I have to call somebody up here, somebody who's a great person, who sets an example. I often talk about her when I'm at different venues. She doesn't know it. If there's anybody who embraces or glorifies her husband's achievement, she certainly sets an example. Everything that's ever had her husband's name written on it, she has a copy of, she has it hanging, she has it in an album, a folder, a binder. She's created her own museum to her husband. That's something my wife wouldn't do. But the fact of the matter is she's terrifically supportive, and she's always fun whenever we see her. So we're always happy when we do see her. And it's very fitting that somebody with that type of care and character is coming up here to talk about Josh Jones, and that's Tina McVeigh. So welcome, Tina McVeigh.
How's everyone?
Woo! Great.
First of all, I miss Josh very much. Josh had various world records on main games such as Super Dodgeball and Best Belt Boxing. He organized many highly successful events to benefit the American Cancer Society. And he also was the event coordinator of Gaming Worldwide. So it is my pleasure to induct him into the 2015 class.
This is Kenny Jones, who's accepting on behalf of her husband. I just want to say an interesting thing. You've all seen how we have the trading cards graded by Beckett Grading Services, and they seal them on the slabs, and they have an expert actually with a microscope look down all the edges and the corners and the surfacing and all that stuff, and then give it a grade from 0 up to 10. And actually, you know, they explained to me that they don't give 10s away hardly ever because it's hard for a card to be that perfect. So we've now had, of the Walt Trudeau collections we call it, we've had over 1,000 cards graded. And there have been 2 10s out of 1,000. Until some cards we just graded of Josh, and one came back a 10. So somehow God was smiling on this card and made one of those rare 10s be a Josh Jones card.
Totally lost what I was going to say. I just want to thank everybody. Not very many people got to meet Josh. Not very many people got to get to know the real Josh. He liked to start trouble. I actually met him through a game. Couldn't stand him. Turned my chat off. And then one day, my character got hacked. He showed up. From then, it just blossomed. Gaming was everything with him. He couldn't get around a lot of people, so doing things at home was important. And, he started doing the fundraising for gaming. He figured if he could do something, he could try to help give back. I appreciate everything that everybody said about him. Those who got to meet him, I'm glad I got to meet some of you. I hope to continue. Thank you again.
And thank you, Kenny, for they drove all the way from Dallas, Texas area. So Josh was inducted is the first recipient under the category of Community Action Award. It's given not necessarily for the video game accomplishments as a competitor or designer, but for someone who does something for the community and also for the infrastructure of the gaming community or gaming competition. So we were honored to induct Josh as the first recipient of the Community Action Award, a category that we continue every year as time goes on.
This next one is rather special, and it's local. And before we call up Kerry Cheney to speak about it, it's special because it happened here in Ottumwa. It happened to somebody local. I was there, I saw it, right to the very end. I talked to him right to the very end, whether he remembers it or not, being awake so long. And it was funny, we were all coming into town. We were these big city heavy guns. And somehow this small farm, corn-fed guy found a way to do what none of us could. So that's what made it super cool. And when I learned this story about him was emergent, it made it even better. I guess it's more touching because you see it from start to finish. But the guy that's here to talk about him and tell a great story about him and needs to come up is Kerry Cheney. Kerry.
We'll be very honored if Mayor Lazio wouldn't mind coming up. Would you mind coming up, Tom? You still here? And the reason we would like the mayor to come up is because you'll learn that the Tim McVeigh Day was proclaimed by the mayor of the video game capital of the world. So we'd like our current mayor as the leading executive, in the sense of the video game capital of the world, to be part of the presentation. So thank you for coming up.
Unless you live under a rock, you know who Tim McVeigh is, what Tim McVeigh's done. And fortunately, I don't have to say a whole lot because in less than 2 hours, you're going to hear the whole story through his wonderful documentary. I just want to say, first of all, that I think the world of Tim and Tina McVeigh, and I'm extremely honored to be inducting Tim into the 2015 Video Game Hall of Fame. It was on a cold day, January 17th, 1984, to be exact, that 16-year-old Tim McVeigh became the first person ever to score 1 billion points on a video game. It was Nibbler. Right here in Ottumwa at the Twin Galaxies Arcade, on 1 quarter, and after 44 grueling hours. Tim was also the first gamer ever to be honored with his own civic day, Tim McVeigh Day, and offered a key to the city. Tonight you will get to live this story for yourself with Tim's newly released documentary, Man vs. Snake, at the Ottumwa 8 Theater. Tim was also honored today, August 6, 2016, with yet another civic day in Ottumwa, the Man vs. Snake Day. So congratulations, Tim. I'm proud to call you a friend.
This is a lot harder than I thought it would be. Not so much on a personal level, but trying to follow my big friend Josh Jones, his induction up here. He was all my modern marathons trying to recapture the score and surpass what I did when I was a kid. Josh was there for all of them. And even when nobody else was watching, Josh was there. So it's really hard to talk right now. And I really hate talking in public anyway, so that kind of is. So this is going to be really short. I want to thank Walter and Billy and everybody from Twin Galaxies for supporting all those gamers through everything that we've done and giving us the platform to shine. I want to thank my wife, Tina, for putting up with me. And I couldn't ask for a better partner in everything that I do. I hope everybody here gets to go see the documentary tonight. And when you do, you'll see what I'm talking about with my wife, Tina. The documentary just would not exist without her. Tom Saki sitting here in the theater tonight. Tom was the original guy that started the quest for the Blue Points. Without Tom and his vision, that wouldn't happen. None of it would happen. So I'm really happy that Tom's here tonight. This is really hard. So I don't know. I'm probably forgetting some people, and I apologize if I did, but thank you everybody for coming.
Well, this last one's kind of tough, but it's also a little bit of fun. It's a little bit of fun because I'll add my own experience to David Bishop from Namco. He's definitely a big shot. He's the executive vice president of Namco. I mean, Namco in the video game world is the biggest thing, and he's the executive vice president. And he became passionate about gaming during the 1970s. He was he's described as a stereotypical nerd. You'll realize that as I read this. When he was not obsessively studying, he was running all-night D&D sessions. He was hanging out in pinball arcades, and he was conducting tabletop war games. I can just picture, and most of you aren't old enough, remember the game Pong? And I can just picture David being obsessed about it. And anyway, he first entered the game business when he landed his dream job at the mall as a mall worker while he was attending college in 1981. He was in college to eventually become the executive vice president, and he landed a dream job as an arcade worker. So that's why I say a stereotypical nerd. I had the same thought pattern. And David just took it to a whole new level. But that passion that he had captured him so much that he actually changed his major to electrical engineering because he wanted to pursue game designing. Again, it's a great story about somebody who loved video games so much, he made it such a tremendous career. And I love hearing stories like that. He moved from Atlanta to the Silicon Valley in 1987, where he joined the Atari Corporation to establish a national mall arcade chain. And in the 1980s, when you joined the Atari, you were on top of the world. It was where everybody wanted to be. And he was there. In 1990, he helped to relocate that same arcade chain, Namco in America, and ultimately enable them to release new games under their own brand name. He was a part of it all the way through. Throughout his 35-year career, he advanced Namco, as well as the industry, through a wide variety of positions, responsibilities, and challenges. He went from technician to chief operations officer. Absolutely impressive. But his favorite position, which I'm tremendously jealous of, he's the chief Pac-Man evangelist. And I think that's what he enjoys doing the most. That's why he's here today. He currently serves on the board of directors of Namco, and he focuses on the development of new entertainment concepts, as well as the use of emerging technologies to craft innovative experiences, including more immersive game attractions using cutting-edge technology, virtual reality, augmented reality software. Each time I see him, he tells me of something new they're working on, and each time I just look at him and think, that's above my head. But he's actually talks about it, he enjoys it. He's like a kid who embraces it, he loves it, and that actually captures my respect for him to a tremendous degree. He currently resides in Chicago with his wife, who also worked at Atari Games. His wife is Janine. His daughter is Jessica. She grew up in the game business. She works in the game business now as well. And they have a dog. You never guess what the dog's name is.
Billy.
Close. Guinness. I was going to say Pac-Man just to be funny. But the fact of the matter is, if I could throw a little news in there, he's actually part of a group called Geezer Gamers. And the fact is, Walter constantly threw the monkey on my back. When I met David here in 2010, I said, "Hi, how you doing? I'm Billy Mitchell." He said, "Yeah, I know." And that was all. I didn't think nothing of it. But then one day when I had to call him about something, he answers the phone. People like David don't answer the phone, but he answered the phone. And I thought, wow. Every time we needed something, Walter would say, "Call David." We wanted him to serve on the board of directors for exactly what we're doing here, the Video Game Hall of Fame, the video game capital of the world. So I was given the task of asking him if he would do it. No chance would he do that. I mean, he'd be crazy. And he embraced it. He constantly helps us with every challenge we have. He takes part in every conference call, every event. So much of being steered in the right direction that has brought us here today is exactly based upon his guidance, his experience, and what he brings to the table. We would have a hard time without him. And we would be lonely without his friendship, that's for sure. Absolutely. David Bishop. Talking about him, having fun about him, I forgot what he has achieved is the Walter Day Lifetime Achievement Award. Absolutely, Walter Day Lifetime Achievement Award.
I normally don't have a tough time speaking, but Billy, as you were doing that, I was starting to get kind of choked up, and I was like, wow, suddenly I feel really weird. So and I don't remember who called me to tell me I was getting this award. I don't feel like I deserve to be in the Hall of Fame, truly. I've run a bunch of arcades and been in the game business for 35 years now, but I've been really lucky. I mean, I think I've done some cool stuff, but it's been a lot of it's being in the right place at the right time. And as much as I'm honored to receive the award, I'm not sure if it's really meaning more to me to be in the Hall of Fame or to have my name say right next to the Walter Day Lifetime Achievement Award. Because Walter Day, I can't even imagine my name being in the same sentence when it comes to the history of games. So, I'm here, I said it earlier, for the same reason all of you guys are. I love games. I've loved it my whole life. I love being part of it. And I am truly honored that you guys have all honored me with this. And there's really not much I can say beyond that. So thank you very much.
Just to rub it in a little more, typically what we face in our challenges, people in David's position, like his boss, is terrific at what he does, the job he does, his boss. So you couldn't ask for somebody more efficient or more effective. But David does what his boss does, but he has a passion for what all of us have here. He doesn't sit behind a calculator and run the numbers and say that's the way we'll do it. He has a passion for sharing things and participating in things, whether the numbers ring true or not. So that's what we do, is we take advantage of him a little bit because he shares the passion we do. So once again, I hope he's here to guide us through all of the things we hope for in the future. So one more time, please, for David Bishop.
So, you know, what we've done here tonight is plant a seed. An amazing seed, because we talk about the Hall of Fame, the birthplace of esports, the birthplace of the U.S. national video game team, the crossroads of the video game age, and all that stuff, sort of in the past, but it's not in the past. It's really only now, really beginning, because there is a vision. There's a vision for what this can become. The worldwide, global esports and video game industry, or maybe even all electronic gaming, maybe even pinball too, does need a home. And it needs the kind of home that is historical, rooted deep in tradition, and has an amazing pedigree and legacy. No other place in the world fits that bill other than Ottumwa, Iowa, where it all started. So it's amazing that here we are 35, 36, 37, 35, 36 years later, still engaging in this dream and taking step after step after step to actually bring it to reality. So this gathering tonight is going to become bigger every year and bigger every year and bigger every year until we just bust out of the seams of this place, and who knows what we would do next. But we will definitely meet that challenge, as Billy has said many times tonight, and figure out what destiny lies ahead for Ottumwa, the Twin Galaxies legacy, the International Video Game Hall of Fame, the story of esports, and whatever else is connected to it. So it's an amazing phenomenon. I'm so honored to have been a part of all. I'm so flattered that people keep giving me all the credit, because I don't deserve all the credit. This has been a group team thing all the way, again and again and again and again and again. And it will always remain such, because it's such a difficult, amazing thing that it took a Michelle Ireland and her incredible grace and intelligence to put a lot of this stuff together. It took an Eric Tesler to believe in this, to go and help make this happen by using these resources. It took the brilliance of Todd Friedman and his time and his devotion to make all the organization and intelligence of this operation come to fulfillment. It took a lot of people, a lot of wisdom, a lot of intelligence and ingenuity to all come together and make the International Video Game Hall of Fame what it is. And if you think about it, there's a lot of Hall of Fames out there right now. And this Hall of Fame is the one that mainly focuses on esports. Because if you look at the class of 2010, about 20 out of the 29 inductees were all inducted as esports competitors. And thereby lies the tale. We are officially, even though we're the whole gaming industry, we are definitely officially the International Video Game Hall of Fame that is intent on honoring the esports industry and the esports tradition. So ladies and gentlemen, I'm glad that you all came tonight. I hope you're all going to come here next year when we have this all again and make this even bigger and better. But before we end tonight, we have a few other things to do, and also show some trailers for the film festival, because we're ahead of time, by the way. But we want to give this thing to someone, because he wasn't here earlier, because he was out someplace doing other stuff when he should have been with us. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, Eric Tesler. This is the Video Game Capital Award. The Video Game Capital Award, originally given out in 2010, and now given out again this weekend. It's commissioned by the committee to commemorate the Video Game Capital. It's independent of the nonprofit organization that makes up the Hall of Fame. It's independent of Twin Galaxies. It's independent of the city of Ottumwa. It's the group of devoted people who believe in this legacy and heritage. And Eric Tesler, somehow Eric Tesler became independent. Didn't have to work anymore. And he decided, well, what do I do with my money? Well, he says, well, I could buy a camera and photograph my food. But then he thought, well, I could also make things come to life, make things become real. So Eric Tesler is the most amazing guy who's brought to life, is it 4 films now, or is it 5? It's 4. At least 4. He's made at least 4 films come to life by funding them. Also, he funded, we're here tonight in this hall because of Eric Tesler. About the last 500 cards, essentially, printed, not all, literally all of them, but about the last 500 of them who were funded by Eric Tesler, because he believes in this community and this culture, and he wants to make sure that all these creative expressions of honor and respect for this tradition of esports and Gatomwa and everything brought to life. So ladies and gentlemen, I don't even know what more I can say about Eric Tussler, other than thank you, and he's an Oakland Raiders fan. He's got the shirt on. And,
way to go, Eric!
I honestly do it because I do it because I know that everyone really likes it. I've gotten a lot of feedback from a lot of people, especially about the trading cards and awards and stuff. Everyone, just when I see the response from people of how much they just enjoy it and really like it, and it just, makes me want to do more and more of it. So, but I really want to thank Walter Day, of course, because, a lot of the stuff that I back, especially for him, a lot of the hard work is done by you. And, all the people who help you, like Michelle, which that award is for, I believe.
Thank you, Otama.
Well, okay, since Billy and I aren't professional like MCs or anything, so we're kind of running out of brain cells right now, so I can't think of anything further I can say. Isn't there a Tom and Joel show that's going to go on or something like that? And then we're going to show the three trailers and introduce the... Okay, well, wait a minute, Todd. It's only 8:30. Okay, here's what we're going to do now. We're going to pass out the ballots. For those of you who want to actually vote and be part of the preliminary whittling down of the roster of nominees, we can give you a ballot. You can fill it out, but you have to pass it in tonight, or can't mail it in later. Okay, so we have the ballots. Billy's got the ballots, and the ballots have Billy. Billy has the ballots, and the ballot has Billy. Okay. I had to do that. Sorry. So essentially, we're going to do the ballots now, and. Todd, would you like can you show any of the images, for instance, the Walk of Fame star? Can you show that? Okay, that's tomorrow morning at 10. We're just going to be laying down a graphic on the sidewalk. I believe the mayor and maybe some other city officials will be there. It's going to be in front of the old Twin Galaxy location at 10 in the morning. The star is going to be made by Creative Edge in Fairfield, Iowa. The count's already set up to do this. We're still raising the funds for it, but essentially, we're going to put the artwork down there and do the declaration. That means we're going to essentially plant the flag. Just like when the Spanish conquistadors would go to the New World, they plant the flag and claim it for Spain. So we're claiming that we are the official first video game walk of fame for the worldwide, global video game esports industry. I don't think there's anyone like this anyplace else. So we're planting the flag, but we can't put the actual star on the sidewalk now because the sidewalks are about to be renovated, and both the manufacturers of the star and the people who were in the maintenance department of the city agreed that the star would be destroyed if they put it down and took it up. So please come to us your spiritual and moral support as we do this inauguration tomorrow morning, East Main Street. Part of the history coming up. 10 o'clock in the morning, tomorrow morning. So that's one image. Now you have the other big bronze plaque, Tom? There, okay. Can you see what that says? That's next year's project. If only one time ever, we're able to get everybody from the 1982 photograph from Life magazine, if just once, that we can get them all together for one reunion. There's been a resistance. It should be next year, the 35th anniversary. So there's the plaque that's being designed. It looks kind of funny because of the way it was photographed, but it's going to be the next plaque. It's going to go someplace in a tumbler, and it's going to go along with trying to have a reunion of the 15 remaining living people of the 16 who are in the photograph. So that's our next year's event, the big one that'll happen on the Sunday of next year's Icon. So Michelle will be open.
Some of them are in jail.
Whatever. Okay, well, we'll get them out. We'll get them out so they can be part of the photograph. And people have ideas. Michelle has agreed to be the master of developing next year's icon event. So it'll be the icon event. It'll be the International Video Game Hall of Fame again. It'll be we'll have the Billy Mitchell and Walter Day Film Festival. I mean, we wouldn't name the film festival after ourselves. We did it because it's so much fun. Nobody in the world had yet developed a vehicle for video game type movies, which there's a lot of them coming out, have a place to be officially shown. So we will be sponsoring tonight's appearance of the Man vs. Snake movie under the Billy Mitchell Walter Day Video Game Film Festival. So we'll all be meeting over at the theaters, 10 o'clock in about 1.5 hours.